I'm thrilled to tell you about another beautiful part of Atlantic Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador. Once again, our tour begins here in Halifax. Like most of our touring programs, all that's included on the first day is the arrival day with an overnight, and there is a welcome reception, so you get to meet your tour manager and your other traveling companions. After the first overnight, the next morning is a free morning to get yourself oriented, and you can go out and maybe explore a little bit of the waterfront or take a tour of Halifax. And then we leave right after lunch and travel up to beautiful Cape Breton Island, and we have a nice dinner. And then we travel to the ferry. And on the ferry, we have full cabins, so you'll travel overnight to arrive in Newfoundland and Labrador the following morning. After arrival, we actually don't have breakfast on the boat. We have breakfast at a hotel, and then we start traveling up the Great Northern Peninsula of Newfoundland and Labrador. This is truly a wonderful day of scenery. There's nothing obstructing your view for most of the day. You have the water on your left and the fjords and mountains on your right. There are times you're traveling between the mountains, and to me, it's some of the best scenery in the world. We will overnight in the community of Port and Port is a beautiful little community, and it's a shrimp capital, and it's the northern shrimp, so it's a great opportunity to try the small northern shrimp. You may have even come across a moose or that kind of thing as we travel through Grossmore National Park. There's moose and caribou and black bear, but this is a great spot once again. They always have moose on the menu, so if that's something you want to try, it is an opportunity. Port is the home of the National Historic Site, and it pays tribute to the archaic Indians, so we'll be visiting there. The next morning we're actually going to travel once again further up the coast, and at St. Barb we're going to get on a ferry to take us over to Labrador, one of the few companies that actually go over to Labrador, and we're going to go up to Red Bay. Red Bay is a National Historic Site and a UNESCO World Heritage Site that pays tribute to the Basque whalers. So we learn all about when whale was king, when whale oil was an important commodity. And we also visit Point Amour Lighthouse, which is the tallest lighthouse here on the east coast of North America, and a great spot to take pictures and wander the seascape. We come back and spend the overnight in Labrador in Blanc-Saint-Blanc, and then the following morning we get up, go back on the ferry, and then we travel up to Lanso Meadows. It was one of the first UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it pays tribute to the Vikings when they first came here. You'll see the actual Viking mounds, you'll have a great interpreter, a great guided walking tour, and then we go to a little museum called the Dark Tickle. And at this museum, you learn about all of the flora and fauna of Newfoundland that's kind of indigenous to them. You can try some bake apple or partridge berry. You can buy some nice preserves. Everything's made there. They also make homemade chocolate. So once again, a great opportunity. Chocolate's never a bad thing to have. We spend the night in St. Anthony, and in St. Anthony we go out for dinner to the Viking Feast, which will give you an opportunity to try a lot of the indigenous dishes of Newfoundland and Labrador all in one sitting. So you can try a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It is in a buffet format. We then the next day we do the Grenville Historic Mission, and Sir Wilfrid Grenville was a doctor that worked the north, and the museum pays tribute to all of the great efforts that he put in. And then we do a whale watching boat tour, and we're on Iceberg Alley here in St. Anthony, so if you come June, early July, perfect time to see the icebergs. It's also a great spot for whales and those beautiful little puffin birds. So one of the things the boat tour always does is have some iceberg ice that allows you to have a little try at ice that's millions of years old. Then we're going to travel back down to Grossmore National Park, where we spend 2 nights right on the water at the Shallow Bay Motel. And while you're there, the meals are included, dinner and breakfast, but they are located next door to the Grossmore Theatre. And one of the great things about Newfoundland and Labrador is theater is alive and well. It's world-class theater, but it tells the story of the plight of Newfoundlanders. It often will cover fish stories, but you can decide if you'd like to go, but there's a couple of performances each night, and we have many guests that actually want to include both performances. Then we spend the next day a full day in Grossmore National Park. So we can, and we're going to have 2 offerings of tours, boat tours. There's one of Bon Bay Fjord. Bon Bay Fjord is not a landlocked fjord, so it's an opportunity for some whales that could be there. The other fjord is Western Brook Pond. It's the one you often see on a lot of the photos from Newfoundland. That particular one, it requires a 45-minute walk in to get to it, so it's not for everyone, and that is a landlocked fjord, so you're not going to see any whales there on that one, but you'll learn about the topography, the landscape, and on both of these trips, of course, you might even come by a moose as well, because there's lots of moose in the area. From there, we also go to the Tablelands, and Tablelands is why Grossmore National Park is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Tablelands are the Earth's mantle, so during the upheaval, you can actually see this mountain that is the Earth's mantle. You can hold a piece of it in your hand, and it's one of the few spots in the world that you have this opportunity. Nothing will ever grow on it. It's just a big rusty mountain, so it's kind of a neat thing to see. From here, we then leave Grossmore National Park and start traveling across to Gander, Newfoundland. And Gander, Newfoundland, a lot of Americans know about because during 9/11, a lot of planes were diverted here. So we go to the Aviation Museum, we learn about their plight in flight because they were a transatlantic hub. So when flights couldn't go the distance they can today, most of the European flights would stop here to refuel. So they were a refueling center, and you'll learn also about our involvement and how the community came out. They'll tell a story that it's being now told on Broadway. The musical Come From Away is sort of the Gander story, Canada's connection in the 9/11 terrible event. From here, we then travel out to the outport of Twillingate for a day. Twillingate, once again, is along Iceberg Alley, so from the top of the vistas, you might see some icebergs floating by. Once again, you can see some whales right from shore. We visit a museum there. We also do the prime berth fishing exhibit. This is a fisherman that will actually fillet a cod, talk about the fishery, and it ranks as one of the most enjoyable parts of a lot of our tours, this particular museum. We then spend a couple nights in Clarenville, Newfoundland, on the west, or I should say the east coast of Newfoundland. And in Clarenville, we'll do an overnight and we'll do a day trip along the Bonavista Peninsula. And the Bonavista Peninsula, we visit the communities of Trinity and Bonavista, and once again learn about the transatlantic cables and communication, but a very different looking terrain than you've seen on the west coast with the fjords and mountains. The east coast has its own unique look. Then we travel into the capital city of St. John's for 2 nights, where we do a nice city tour of the capital. We go to the community of Kitty Vitty, and we learn about, once again, Newfoundland has a big connection with our American friends to the south, but it's also the last province to join Canada. So I said here in Atlantic Canada, we kind of have it all. We have the first 2 of the first provinces with Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, and the last province with Newfoundland. The other thing that we're going to do while we're in St. John's is we're going to do a day trip down to the community of Bay Bulls, do another boat tour. We go out into the bird sanctuary where you can see all those beautiful puffin birds. One more chance for icebergs, one more chance for whales. And then we go to Cape Sphere National Historic Site. And the lighthouses there are beautiful, but this is the most easterly point in North America. It's where the sun comes up first before returning to the capital city for our last overnight. You'll get time to explore where our hotel is located in the downtown core. And the last day you can fly home, or you might want to ask to add a few post nights and spend a few more days in Newfoundland. The other thing is most people will fly home from here, but our bus does come back to Nova Scotia, so should anyone want to travel back, they could come back by ferry if they wanted to, and that is a possibility that can be added. The same as if you didn't want to begin in Halifax, you can also go to Deer Lake and join our trip. Once again, this is a 13-day trip, but you do have the opportunity to divide this into 2 separate trips if you wanted as well. We do offer it as just a West Coast offering, and then one that does Grossmore National Park and the East Coast items that I've talked about. So please reach out, give us a call, email us, and let us set up your worry-free vacation and come have fun with us.